This is Motorola's Edge 30 Ultra. They seem to be a brand that is often overlooked, and I'm starting to think, why is that? Because this offering from them is really solid, as you'll find out in this review. So the Edge 30 Ultra's got a lot of features. It's got 125 watt wired charging, 50 watt wired charging, so very quick charging rates there, 6.67 inch screen, which is a OLED screen, 144 Hertz maximum refresh, and it can get up to 1250 nits maximum brightness with it. It's all powered by the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, and then let's not of course forget the cameras. It does have the new Samsung ISO Cell HP1 200 megapixel sensor with an f1.9 aperture. It does also have a 12 megapixel 2x optical camera and a ultra wide that is 50 megapixels. The selfie cam, which is the cutout style here, is 60 megapixels. It can shoot 4K vlog footage too with it. So this is what we get in the box. We have a README in various different languages, legal and safety information, SIM tray tool, TPU case, 125 watt charger. Now it does have a Type-C plug with it, so it's a Type-C to Type-C cable. There's only really one thing missing, and that is a 3.5mm to Type-C adapter. It would have been nice if they included it because, of course, there is no 3.5mm headphone jack. The Edge 30 Ultra is not what I would call a light phone, but it's not too bad, kind of standard now. It's 205 grams. When you compare that to, say, an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is well over 260, it does seem then actually lighter weight. So curved screen here. We do have a 6.67 inch size screen, and the resolution is 1080 by 2400. Now, because of the curvature, I have noticed that sometimes there are a few little edge touches that are registered when they shouldn't be. So touch detection or the touch rejection on the sides here can sometimes fail a little bit. It's a very minor complaint. It doesn't happen a lot, but I just wanted to mention it there. Now, really good build quality. The camera up here, this is 60 megapixels, and we have a metal frame all around the outside. You can see the antenna lines, and when you do see those antenna lines, straight away, it's a giveaway that it is, of course, then a metal frame that we do have with it. Now, holding it, it feels fine, but I have noticed the edges a little bit, just like the name, the edge, they do kind of stick into your hand a little bit. Again, I'm being a little bit nitpicky. I just wish it was rounded off a little bit better. Now, we've got a bit of a texture to our power on button, volume up and down, made out of metal again, and a frosted glass back here. The white, I think, looks really nice here. This snow white color, very bright, and we've got the Motorola logo there you can just see. Now, this is a frosted color, so it's not picking up fingerprint smudges, and it does feel really nice in hand. I really like it. I like the look of this phone. Now, our camera module here, we've got, of course, the ISO Cell HP1 from Samsung. Now, this has an f1.9 aperture. It's not as bright as, say, the 12T Pro from Xiaomi. Our dual tone LED flashes. We do have an ultra wide, which is 50 megapixels, and then a 12 megapixel camera with an f1.6 telephoto. That's really for good use for portraits, that particular one there. Now, this main camera does have optical image stabilization with it, and of course, electronic with video. Loudspeaker here. There's also one in the earpiece, our dual nano SIM tray, so no micro SD card support, so that is a bit of a shame there too that we're missing out on that, but it's just the way it is. No 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, this Type-C port, really good. One of the best. Why is that? Well, it's fast. We've got USB 3.2, I believe it is, speeds, or 3.1, and video out. Video out with the desktop mode and in 4K, and it does support 21:9 aspect ratio displays. So probably one of the best desktop modes and display outs that I've seen on a phone so far. Up the top here, we do have, you can see the Dolby Atmos there. So we've got Dolby Atmos for the sound, and there's a microphone there at the top. So no IR transmitter and the antenna lines. The thickness of the Edge 30 Ultra is around about 8.4 millimeters measuring here, but if you include the camera modules, which do stick out a little bit, as you can see, that brings it up then to 12.5 millimeters. Motorola opted for a display with a curve to it. So that means when you look at it at certain angles, you will see that the edges shift out. See how the white there is now becoming a little bit bluish on the very edges. Now, for most people, the average Joe, and not fussy tech heads like me, it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to bother anyone. Response to touch is excellent. Very good. And it is a panel that gives us a lot of options when you do go into the settings. Now, I'm really happy to see it's been lacking for some time. That is this right here, this setting. You'll see down here, we do have flicker prevention. This is DC dimming. Now, when I turn it off, we may possibly see a little bit of banding, although I'm not really noticing it. So the screen is very bright. It can peak at 1250 nits. Here in direct sunlight, it is faring absolutely fine. You can make it out. You can send text messages, WhatsApps, not a problem. This banding that you're seeing, that you don't actually see in person. It's just on camera that's happening. So all up, it's an excellent display, and it has a 144 hertz refresh rate running the UI at 144 frames per second. Normally this is reserved for gaming phones only that I normally see this, 144 or maybe 165. Now 120 would have been perfectly fine. I don't think anyone's going to be able to tell the difference between 120 and 144. I know I can't, but I would have loved to have seen a 90 hertz option, which is sadly missing. A lot of manufacturers just don't seem to bother to include it. The Edge 30 Ultra does have an always-on display, as you can see, and if you tap around this area, it'll know that, hey, you want to wake the phone up, but sometimes you can see it's a little slow. You always just tap the button on the side. Now, the fingerprint reader location, I don't like it when they put it so low down, because I'll be holding the phone. It's more convenient to have it about there, right? I'm pretty sure everyone's with me on this. But you need to hold the phone a little higher and then use it. Now, I find that it's a very good fingerprint reader for the in-screen ones. I prefer actually the side always on, but it works. It does the job well. Now, if your hands are a little drier, and if you're using this phone in winter, I can see that sometimes you may have to use it again. But for me, so far, right now, it seems to work 9 out of 10 times. And, well, actually, most of the time, it's pretty much 10 out of 10 times. It's a good fingerprint reader. This phone does run Android 12, and I do like the UI. So it's very similar to stock Android. You can see with our notifications, the toggles do remind me a lot of when I had the Pixel 6 Pro, and I'm about to get the Pixel 7 Pro too, so look out for my review or coverage of that in the channel. And the performance is excellent. This is really good. It's nice and smooth. I've encountered no real major bugs. The only is the one I mentioned before, that I've just noticed that the edge detection is triggering touches a little bit when you don't want it to. So right now, if my fingers are touching it, and I can move this, it's fine. So that's doing its job. It's working properly. It's just a few instances I've noticed that it hasn't quite been absolutely perfect. That's really my only complaint. Multitasking is very smooth. It is fluid. I have 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of UFS 3.1 storage. I think a lot of people are going to like this UI compared to, say, MIUI, which is buggy. It maybe has more features MIUI, but if you ask me, there's no point in having all those features if you're lacking the basics like stability and very fluid. And very important too, that there is no noticeable UI lag starter. There's actually nothing. It's been very quick swapping between applications. Multitasking has all been really quite pleasant and a great experience with it so far. Now, there was one firmware update I have received already. It does have now a September the 1st security patch level, which is really good to see. And bloatware. Just ignore some of these apps already. I installed those myself. The only bloatware you really get is this. Motorola notifications, their little how-to guide app there, ready for, and about 3 or 4 others. So there's in total about 6 bloatware applications, which is quite good. And the other brands out there that I do review, they sometimes have 15, 12 bloatware applications. So it's not bad when it comes to the bloat that's already pre-installed. So it does support Wi-Fi level 1. And you can see HDR10 Plus right here. Netflix, I'll get onto that soon because I'll show you a screenshot from within the app. There's a couple of points I wanted to mention with it. And we do have a camera 2 API of level 3. So look out for Gcam ports to test out that ISO cell. The, of course, HP1 200 megapixel sensor. Internal storage, very quick. There are going to be no bottlenecks with these kind of speeds. They are excellent. And of course, I do have the 256 gigabytes of storage and 12 gigabytes of RAM here with my particular model. This is Geekbench 5, so you can run this on your own phone. It's free to download off Google Play Store and see just how much slower your phone's going to be. Your current one, if you're thinking about upgrading and performance, means a lot to you. Like this right here, very good. Getting over now 1 million points with Antutu. It does well with the, of course, Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. Temps went up 5 degrees. I've seen other phones getting up to 9 and 8 degrees. So we'll see the thermals later on. I'll talk a little bit about that when I do a little bit of gaming. Okay, Netflix. So there's the good thing here that we've got full HD resolution. The bad is HDR capabilities. It's not recognizing it for some reason, but this phone does have an HDR 10 Plus screen. So this just wait, the app should update, and hopefully Netflix will later give us HDR. So I did a stress test here. This is Wildlife Extreme Stress Test. It loops the same benchmark, which is 1 minute long, 20 times, so 20 minutes in total. Some phones cannot even finish this demanding test without crashing and burning, overheating. It didn't crash and burn, but boy, did it throttle. Look at that. It's gone down over 40% the performance. So that's quite a bit, that drop. You can see for the first 6-7 minutes, it's fine. And I've seen this when gaming, and then the performance starts to completely halve almost. So that's how they keep that very hot Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 cool. The only phones that can run this basically at 100%, the same chipset, are gaming phones, like the Red Magic 7 Pro with its fan in it, keeps it cool. You don't have those kind of problems. So we do have an audio bitrate, you can see right here, 256 kilobits per second with our video quality. Good. And it even has a wind filter option too. So charge time, I started at 9%, up to 89%, took 21 minutes. For some reason, it disconnects for a split second when it has to charge the last 5%. And that did take an additional about 4 minutes. So you're looking at 25 minutes to fully charge the 4,610 milliamp hour battery. That's not bad at all. That's very good. That's really fast. It's not the fastest for over 120 watts, it's 125 watts. It's still really good. What about battery life? So this is our battery life here. I don't know what's happened to my screenshot, but it was 10 hours and 30 minutes with the brightness set to 200 nits. For 144 hertz display, that's not bad. Real world use, you are looking around about scraping over 7 hours if you can. Most of the time it'll be about 6.5 hours. So not amazing battery life, but most people should be able to make it through a full day. And of course you can fully charge in just 25 minutes. Call quality and audio quality in general, those loudspeakers, I'll give you a sample of them shortly. So we have a loudspeaker down here, and the earpiece also doubles as a loudspeaker. Earpiece quality sounds good. It sounds like any other flagship. We do have noise cancellation with the background. Now, normally I don't mention voice call quality anymore unless I have a problem, but I just wanted to say that it is fine here too. So we don't have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Sad to see, but hey, that's gone. You don't get it in flagships anymore. So I'll give you a sample of these Dolby Atmos speakers. They sound very good, and they are loud. They've got a hint of bass to them, as you'll hear. So it certainly does have a great spec for gaming. Even a demanding game like this, Genshin Impact, on the top settings, I do have it. It is going to be around, for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, around late 50s. And you can see it's 60 frames per second right now, which is good. So you've got this little gaming center, gaming hub here that you've got different options. So I've forced it into high performance for this very demanding game. And then there's a little toggle there to turn off that widget for the frames per second counter, which I'm going to keep on now. So you'll see that it dipped down, which is normal. This game is very demanding, especially when I first fire off a spell. See how it drops to 44? But it will bounce back really quickly. Now, this is normal. I'm seeing this with other Snapdragon 8 Plus phones that I've been testing out. So eventually, the more you game, the hotter it starts to get. But the good news is it will not overheat. It will not crash and burn. It will not kick me out of the game. It'll go, but the performance drops down approximately pretty much what we're seeing with 3D Mark Extreme tests. It'll drop down to about 60-70%. So it'll lose around 40 to 30% performance due to that heat. So it's a hot chipset, good frame rate right now, but the occasional little stutters, as you can see. So most gamers, of course, will probably end up just using lower settings, and then you have a steady 60 frames per second the whole time. So it's got great gaming performance, and it does get very hot around the frame here. Metal frame can get up to 48 degrees. Around the back here, it's most of the heaters, so obviously that's where the chipset's located about here. That's Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. Over to the cameras. So the Edge 30 Ultra here does have a 4K front-facing camera, 60 megapixels,
And it's looking pretty good here. It's not that bad. The stabilization with the front-facing camera I find in general to be a little bit better than the rear cameras. So the audio bitrate is 256 kilobits per second. So great to see they haven't gone with the default 96 kilobits per second like other brands do. For example, Xiaomi. And they've edited at least that line of code there to change over the audio quality. Now we do have wind filtering if you do need that option, which is quite handy. It's the difference between having ruined audio when you're talking and actually audible, something you can make out and understand. Ultra wide video, so we only have 1080p, no 4K. It makes no sense with this 50 megapixel sensor. Note that it's overexposing areas of the sky there, the clouds, so I find this ultra-wide video performance to be very disappointing here. It should be a lot better. The stabilization, electronic of course, is alright, but notice that as I pan around, I'm even seeing like a bit of judder coming through with this footage, even at 1080p. Probably that's why they decided not even to use 4K. So I hope from Motorola we're going to have a firmware update, a patch to fix this, what I think is terrible video performance. It really should be a lot better than what we are seeing now. 4K 30 frames per second now. That spooky looking cat right here is my other cat, Wappo. He doesn't seem to really like humans that much. Poor guy, I think he was abandoned or abused, but he's a rescue cat. Anyway, 4K 30 frames per second, 4K 60 is an option. Now, the focus with 4K 30 seems to be sometimes a little bit hit and miss. With 4K 60, I've noticed that the focus is terrible. Now, stabilization here, let's just go up these stairs. Isn't amazing. I don't find it to be flagship grade here, so Motorola has some work to do with this. They've also got work to do with the focus issues in 4K 60. So not bad quality, but it could certainly be a lot better. Look at that, focus issues again there a little. You really have to be right in the center there to get that focus. It's not amazing. Very quickly, 8K footage. This is where we do see quite a few focus problems, that it really struggles to get focus on subjects properly. You normally have to tap to override. Like, I cannot get it. There we go. No, it still won't focus properly. And it's the same with 4K 60.
So this model here has a lot going for it, a huge potential I can see in that HP1 sensor from Samsung. Now it might not have the brightest aperture compared to the 12T Pro, but it still does well in low light. Now I do want to talk a little bit about the cameras, that I often sometimes see a little bit of over sharpening. HDR can be a little bit over the top, just brightening up those shadows way too much, starting to make some of the shots look a little unnatural. The biggest disappointment really is the video quality, that we don't have 4K with the ultra wide, the stabilization with the 1080p ultra wide, and then the main camera isn't really that good, the electronic image stabilization. They've got a bit of work to do, optimization there, and there is the issue then with focus, especially when recording video. You notice it sometimes at 4K 30, but it's very obvious at 4K 60. It just doesn't want to lock on to anything. So if you have someone, like you've got a young child that walks in front of the camera, you want to record them, it will sometimes still be locked onto the background, and that's not really a good thing to see. So it seems a little buggy there, and I do hope that Motorola can address that. There's also the other minor little issue it's not huge, it just happens maybe 1 or 2 times during the whole time, the whole day that you're using the phone, is occasionally the touch can be a little bit glitchy with palm rejection, and just sometimes just does something a little bit random, like it will trigger a gesture that, oh, hang on, I didn't actually swipe any gesture, so why has it gone into recent apps? And it's to do again, I think, with the palm rejection, that it sometimes gets a little confused there, so I hope they can address that. Apart from that, we've got some really good offerings for the price point. The metal frame, the build quality is excellent. It's a great looking phone. It does have a bright screen, 144 Hertz, very fast charging, and even 4K with the front cameras where other models are lacking that, like say the Xiaomi 12T Pro. It has video out and USB 3.5 support, and their desktop mode from Motorola happens to be one of the best 4K support. Others will just cap out at 1080p or 1440p. We get the full 4K with Motorola. It's really good to see. So it's a good phone, and I really hope that this brand starts to get a little bit more recognition, because I feel a lot of people out there maybe will go for a Xiaomi flagship when you should probably be picking up one of these. It's just better quality overall, offering quite a bit more than the competition.